The giant hall was filled with strange sounds. Clicks, hums, and whispers came from thousands of different alien beings. Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the bright white circle on the floor. He was the only human in the room, and he felt very small. The aliens around him were huge. Some looked like walking trees with glowing eyes. Others had skin that changed colors like a rainbow. A few floated in the air inside glass bubbles filled with green gas. Jake had seen many alien races during his 5 years as Earth's ambassador. But being surrounded by all of them at once still made him nervous. High above him, on a platform that looked like it was made of pure light, sat the council leaders. These were the oldest and most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had ruled space for thousands of years. Long before humans even learned to make fire, a snake-like creature with silver scales raised one of her 4 arms. Her name was Vextara, and she was the council's speaker. When she talked, her voice came from everywhere at once, like she was speaking directly into Jake's mind. "The vote is finished," she said. Her scales turned from silver to dark red, which Jake knew meant she was angry. "Humans must leave the inner worlds. You will go to the outer rim. This decision cannot be changed." Jake felt his heart sink. He had known this might happen, but hearing it still hurt. "May I ask why the council has made this choice?" A creature that looked like a giant blue crystal spoke next. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. "Humans are too dangerous. You fight too much, you ask too many questions. You make other races think strange thoughts." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew it would not help. The council had been debating this for months. Every week they heard new complaints about humans. The Zephyrians said humans were too loud and rude. The Andromedans said human emotions were confusing and scary. The Crystalline Collective said humans made them feel uncomfortable because they could not read human thoughts. But the real problem was deeper than that. Humans were different from all the other races in the galaxy. While other species had evolved to be peaceful and calm, humans still had their wild side. They took risks, they explored dangerous places, they invented new things that sometimes did not work. They asked questions that others preferred not to think about. In the back of the Great Hall, Captain Lisa Carter watched through her ship's computer connection. She commanded the human diplomatic vessel that had brought Jake to this meeting. Her crew was waiting in orbit, ready to take him home with either good news or bad news. Lisa knew it would be bad news. The signs had been clear for weeks. Human colonies were being asked to leave certain star systems. Human traders were being banned from some markets. Human students were being kicked out of alien schools. "Captain," said her communications officer, a young man named Peter Collins. "Should I tell Earth Command about the decision?" "Not yet," Lisa said. "Let's wait until Jake is back on the ship. But yes, start preparing the message. Tell them we need to begin the evacuation plans." Back in the council chamber, Jake tried one more time to change their minds. "The council has always said that diversity makes the galaxy stronger. Humans have helped solve many problems. We stopped the vegan trade war. We found a cure for the Red Plague." Enough," said Vextara. Her scales turned an even darker red. "Those problems existed because humans were involved. Without humans, there would be no wars to stop, no diseases to cure, no chaos to clean up." A creature that looked like a walking tree with golden leaves nodded its massive head. "The younger races look up to humans. They see how you behave, and they start to act the same way. This must stop before it spreads further." Jake understood now. The council was not just afraid of humans. They were afraid of what humans represented: change, growth, the possibility that the old ways might not be the best ways. Dr. Alex Turner was on one of the research ships in the human fleet. He was a scientist who studied alien life forms and had spent years learning about the galaxy's history. For the past few months, he had been tracking some strange readings from deep space. Alex was in his lab when he heard about the council's decision. He was not surprised, but he was worried. Not because humans were being forced to leave, but because of what he had discovered in his research. "Computer, show me the readings from Sector 7G again," he said. The computer displayed a star map covered with red dots. Each dot represented a strange energy signature that Alex had been tracking. They were moving slowly but steadily toward the center of the galaxy where all the major civilizations lived. Alex had tried to warn the Council about these readings 3 weeks ago. He had sent reports to every major scientific institution in the galaxy, but his warnings had been ignored. The council members said he was just trying to scare them to help humanity's case. "Dr. Turner," said his assistant, a young woman named Katie Williams, "the readings are getting stronger." "Whatever these things are, they're getting closer," Alex nodded grimly. He had studied the old records, the ancient stories that most races had forgotten. He knew what these readings meant, but he also knew that no one would listen to him now. On the council platform, Vextara was finishing her speech. "Humans will have 30 days to gather their belongings and leave the inner worlds. Any humans who refuse to leave will be arrested and forced to go. This is our final word." The other council members made various sounds of agreement. Some clicked their claws, others hummed in harmony. A few simply glowed brighter for a moment. Jake bowed his head. He had done his best, but it was not enough. "I understand, Counselor. Humanity will comply with your decision." As Jake walked toward the exit, he heard whispers from the alien crowd. Some sounded happy. Others seemed sad. A few sounded worried about what would happen next. The trade minister from Zephyria, a purple creature named Calicmore, was definitely happy. He had been complaining about human competition for years. With humans gone, his people could control more trade routes and make more money. The Andromedans, who shared thoughts with each other like a hive mind, felt relief. Human emotions had always been confusing to them. Humans felt things so strongly and changed their minds so quickly. It was like trying to listen to music while someone was banging on drums, but not everyone was happy. Some of the younger races, the ones who had only joined the council in the last few hundred years, looked worried. They had learned a lot from humans. They had seen how human creativity and determination could solve problems that seemed impossible. As Jake left the council chamber, he passed by Ambassador Shun Wei from the Tau Ceti colonies. Chun was from a race that looked almost human, but had blue skin and 3 eyes. He grabbed Jake's arm gently. "This is a mistake," Chun whispered. "The council is making a big mistake. Your people bring something important to the galaxy, something we need." Jake smiled sadly. "Thank you for saying that, but the decision is made. We'll just have to find our own way now." In the depths of space, far from the council chambers and the civilized worlds, something ancient stirred. Deep sensors that had been quiet for millions of years began to register movement. Something vast and hungry was waking up from a very long sleep. The galaxy was about to change in ways that none of them could imagine. And soon, the very aliens who had cast humanity out would be desperately wishing they had never let them go. 3 years had passed since the Council forced humanity to leave the inner worlds. The Outer Rim was a dangerous place where most civilized species refused to live. It was filled with dead planets, asteroid fields, and space storms that could destroy a ship in minutes. But humans had made it their home. Commander Nick Brady stood on the observation deck of New Texas Station, looking out at the busy spaceport below. Ships came and went every few minutes, carrying supplies between the human colonies. When they first arrived, they had only 3 old transport ships and a handful of emergency supplies. Now they had a fleet of 50 vessels, all built in human shipyards. "The morning reports, Commander," said his aide, Lieutenant Roy Parker. He handed Nick a datapad with information from all the human settlements. Nick read through the reports with satisfaction. Haven's Rest had finished building their new hospital. Port Liberty had successfully grown their first crop of Earth vegetables in alien soil. The mining colony on Kepler 9 had found a rich deposit of rare metals that would fund their expansion for years. "Any problems?" Nick asked. "The usual," Roy replied. "Some space pirates tried to attack a supply convoy near the Vega system. Captain Johnson's patrol ship scared them off. And we got another message from the Council asking us to stop unauthorized exploration of the outer sectors." Nick laughed. "Unauthorized exploration. That's a fancy way of saying we're going places they're too scared to go. The truth was that humans had thrived in the Outer Rim, without the Council's rules and restrictions. Human creativity had exploded. They built ships that were faster and stronger than anything the Council had ever seen. They developed new ways to turn dead planets into living worlds. They found solutions to problems that had puzzled alien scientists for centuries. Engineer Mary Adams was working in her lab on Haven's Rest when she made her biggest discovery yet. She had been trying to find a way to make planets suitable for life in just a few months instead of the centuries it usually took. "Computer, run the simulation again," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. She had been working for 18 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination. The computer displayed a three-dimensional image of a planet. Slowly, the brown and gray surface began to change. Oceans appeared. Clouds formed in the atmosphere. Green patches of plant life spread across the continents. "Time to completion. 4 months, 12 days, the computer announced. Mary smiled. The Council's best terraforming technology took 300 years to do the same job, but human methods were different. Instead of slowly changing a planet bit by bit, they used controlled explosions, genetic engineering, and weather manipulation to transform entire worlds quickly. "Katie, come look at this," Mary called to her assistant, Dr. Katie Williams. Katie had worked with Dr. Turner on the research ships but had joined Mary's team after they settled in the Outer Rim. Katie looked at the simulation with wide eyes. "Mary, this is incredible. We could turn 100 dead worlds into garden planets in just a few decades." "That's the plan," Mary said. "The Council wanted us gone because we were too unpredictable. Let's show them what unpredictable can accomplish." Dr. Alex Turner had his own laboratory on the research station orbiting New Texas. He was still tracking the strange signals he had discovered years ago, and what he was finding made him more worried every day. "The readings are getting stronger," he told his team during their daily meeting. "Whatever these things are, they're definitely moving toward the inner worlds." His assistant, a young physicist named Carl Johnson, looked at the data on his screen. "Dr. Turner, I've been studying the old records from the Galactic archives. These energy signatures match descriptions from something called the Devourer War." Alex nodded grimly. "I've read those records too. Most species think it's just ancient mythology, but I think it's real history. The Devourers were supposed to be creatures that ate entire planets, consuming everything in their path. But the records say they were defeated millions of years ago," said another team member, Dr. Sarah Kim. "Or maybe they just went to sleep," Alex said, "and now they're waking up." Back in Council space, the first signs of real trouble were beginning to appear. The mining colony on Kepler-7 had stopped sending regular reports. When the Council sent an investigation team to check on them, they found something that terrified them. The planet was gone, not destroyed, not broken apart, but simply gone. Where Kepler-7 had once orbited its star, there was now empty space. The investigation team found no debris, no wreckage, no sign that a planet had ever existed. Their Council scientists had no explanation. Planets did not just disappear, even. If someone had weapons powerful enough to destroy a world, there should be pieces left behind. But there was nothing. The news spread panic through the inner worlds. If an entire planet could vanish without a trace, what was safe? The Council increased security patrols and started building new defensive systems. But they had no idea what they were defending against. In the Outer Rim, humans heard about Kepler-7 through their spy networks. Most human colonies had secret agents who gathered information from the inner worlds. The Council had kicked them out, but they still wanted to know what was happening in the galaxy. Captain Lisa Carter, now Admiral of the Human Defense Force, called a meeting of all the colony commanders. They gathered in the conference room of the flagship UHS Defiance, a massive battleship that had been built in the New Texas shipyards. "People, we have a problem," Lisa began. "The Council is facing something they don't understand, and if Dr. Turner is right, it's going to affect all of us." Commander Brady leaned forward. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" "We prepare for war," Lisa said simply. "Real war, not the little skirmishes we've been having with pirates and raiders." We need to assume that whatever destroyed Kepler-7 is coming for us eventually. The other commanders nodded. Unlike the council races, humans remembered how to fight. Every human colony was built like a fortress. Every citizen knew how to use a weapon. Every ship was armed and ready for battle. Captain Steve Rogers, who commanded. The patrol fleets had been studying the reports from the inner worlds. Admiral, the Council's military hasn't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. Their ships are designed for ceremonies and parades, not combat. If something dangerous is coming, they're not ready for it. That's their problem, said Governor. Patricia Lee, who had joined the meeting by video link from New Texas. They wanted us gone. Now they can deal with their own troubles. But Dr. Turner disagreed. He had been invited to the meeting to share his research. With respect, Governor, this isn't about revenge. If these devourers are real, and if they reach the inner worlds, they'll gain access to the most populated and resource-rich parts of the galaxy. That will make them strong enough to spread to other galaxies. So what are you saying? Asked Commander Brady. I'm saying this is an extinction event, Turner replied. Not just for humans, but for all. Biological life in the galaxy? Maybe even beyond? The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Finally, Admiral Carter spoke. Dr. Turner, what do you need to continue your research? More sensors, more computing power, and access to the old archives from the pre-council civilizations. There might be information about how the devourers were defeated before. You'll have whatever you need, Carter promised. But I want everyone to understand something. If Dr. Turner is right, we might end up being the galaxy's last hope. And if that happens, we need to be ready. As the meeting ended, the commanders returned to their ships and colonies with new orders. The human settlements in the Outer Rim began to change from peaceful farming communities into military bases. Shipyards worked around the clock to build new vessels. Scientists worked to develop better weapons and defenses 3 years ago. The Council had cast them out because they were too violent and unpredictable. Now those same qualities might be the only thing that could save the galaxy. In the depths of space, the ancient sensors continued their steady beeping. The things that had destroyed Kepler-7 were moving again, heading toward the next target. And in the comfortable worlds of the inner galaxy, the Council races continued their peaceful lives, unaware that their greatest nightmare was slowly coming. True, the humans in the Outer Rim watched and waited, preparing for a war that might determine the fate of all life in the universe. They had been called chaotic and dangerous, but soon the galaxy would learn that sometimes chaos was exactly what was needed to survive. The emergency message came through on the most secure communication channel the galaxy had ever used. Admiral Lisa Carter stared at the screen in her command center, hardly believing what she was seeing. The seal of the Galactic Council glowed on the display. But the being who appeared was not the proud leader she remembered from 3 years ago. Counselor Vextara looked terrible. Her silver scales had turned a sickly gray color, and her forearms shook as she spoke. Behind her, the great council chamber was dark and nearly empty. Only a few aliens sat in the thousands of seats that were once filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Admiral Carter, Vextara began, her voice weak and desperate. I am speaking on behalf of what remains of the Galactic Council. We need your help. Lisa had to fight to keep her expression calm. These were the same beings who had kicked humanity out of civilized space. They had called humans too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to live among the other races. Now they were begging for help. We are facing a crisis beyond anything we have ever experienced, Vextara continued. The entities you call the devourers have consumed half of our worlds. Our fleets have been destroyed or turned against us. Our people are dying by the billions. The video feed showed images that made Lisa's blood run cold. Entire star systems had been stripped bare. Planets that had been home to ancient civilizations for millions of years were now just empty chunks of rock floating in space. But worse than that were the ships. The Council's own vessels were attacking their former allies. Magnificent starships that had once carried diplomats and scientists now hunted their creators like wolves. The crews had been changed somehow, turned into extensions of the devourer swarm. The Andromedans are gone, Vexthara said, tears flowing down her reptilian face. Their entire collective consciousness was shattered in minutes. The Zephyrians have retreated to their homeworld, but they are under siege by their own trade. Fleet. The crystalline collective has gone silent. We do not know if they still exist. Lisa called for Jake Morrison, who had returned to his role as Earth's primary diplomat. He arrived in the command center just as Vexthara was explaining the full scope of the disaster. The devourers are not just destroying us, the alien continued. They are learning from us. Each race they consume makes them smarter, stronger, more dangerous. They adapt to our weapons, our tactics, our technology. Nothing we do can stop them. Jake stepped forward, his face serious. Counselor, with respect, why are you telling us this? 3 years ago you made it very clear that humanity was not welcome in civilized space. Vexthara's scales turned an even deeper gray. Because we were wrong, we thought your violence and chaos were weaknesses. We believed that order and peace were the highest values. But the devourers feed on order. They consume structure and stability. Only chaos can confuse them. The message continued with technical data that Dr. Turner had been requesting for years. The Council was finally sharing their deepest secrets, their most classified research, their ancient archives. They were giving humanity everything they had denied them before. After the transmission ended, Lisa called an emergency meeting of the Human Colonial Council. Representatives from every human settlement in the Outer Rim gathered in the conference room of New Texas Station. The mood was tense and angry. Governor Patricia Lee was the first to speak. They kicked us out. They called us dangerous barbarians. They said we were a threat to galactic peace. Now they want us to save them? Commander Nick Brady nodded in agreement. My people have been building new lives out here. We've got farms, schools, families. Why should we risk everything for the aliens who rejected us? Captain Steve Rogers, who now commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled, had a different view. Because if we don't help them, we'll be fighting the devourers alone later. And by then, they'll be too strong to defeat. Dr. Turner joined the meeting by video link from his research station. Steve is right. I've been analyzing the data the Council sent us. The devourers don't just destroy civilizations, they absorb them. Every race they consume makes them more intelligent and adaptable. If they reach the galactic core, they'll have access to the knowledge and resources of 1,000 different species. So, what are you saying? Asked Governor Lee. I'm saying that if we let the Council fall, we're not just abandoning our enemies. We're creating a monster that will be impossible to stop. The debate went on for hours. Some humans wanted revenge for the years of exile. Others worried about the safety of their own families. A few argued that they should help the Council but demand major changes in return. Finally, Admiral Carter called for quiet. I understand everyone's feelings. The Council treated us badly, and we have every right to be angry. But we're not talking about politics here. We're talking about the survival of all biological life in the galaxy. She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked the areas controlled by the devourers. Yellow zones showed regions under attack. Green zones were still free, but they were shrinking fast. If we do nothing, the devourers will reach the galactic core in 6 months. Once they have that much mass and energy, they'll be able to spread to other galaxies. This won't just be the end of the Council. It will be the end of everything. The room fell silent as everyone studied the display. The red zones were growing larger even as they watched. Dr. Rogers stood up. Admiral, what are you recommending? We mobilize everything we have, Lisa said. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We go to the Council's aid not because we forgive them, but because we have no choice. Jake Morrison added his support. There's something else to consider. If we save the Council, we'll be in a position to demand real changes. No more exile, no more discrimination, no more treating humans as second-class citizens. Dr. Turner had been working on something during the meeting. I've been studying the devourers' behavior patterns. They're most vulnerable during the conversion process, when they're absorbing a new species. If we can disrupt that process, we might be able to turn their own strength against them. What do you need? Carter asked. Time and resources. The quantum anchor technology that Dr. Adams developed might be the key. If we can create stable reality zones, we can prevent the devourers from converting matter and energy. Engineer Mary Adams, who had been listening from her lab on Haven's Rest, spoke up through the communication system. I can modify the terraforming equipment to create quantum anchors, but we'll need every ship in the fleet to carry them. The vote was close, but in the end, humanity decided to help their former enemies. The decision was made easier by the knowledge that they were really fighting for their own survival. Within hours, the entire Outer Rim was mobilizing for war. The shipyards of New Texas worked around the clock to retrofit vessels with quantum anchors. The military bases on Haven's Rest and Port Liberty prepared their soldiers for the largest battle in galactic history. Captain Lisa Carter, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, would command the combined human forces. Jake Morrison would serve as the diplomatic liaison, working with whatever remained of the Council leadership. Dr. Turner would coordinate the scientific effort to defeat the devourers. As the human fleet prepared to depart for the inner worlds. Many colonists gathered to watch. Children who had never seen the civilized galaxy waved goodbye to their parents. Elderly humans who remembered Earth shed tears for the worlds they might never see again. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Defiance, looking out at the 1,000 ships that would follow her into battle. 3 years ago, these same vessels had carried refugees fleeing from Council persecution. Now they were carrying humanity's greatest warriors to save the galaxy. Admiral, said her communications officer, Lieutenant Roy Parker, we're receiving a message from the Council. They're sending coordinates for the rendezvous point. Tell them we're on our way, Carter replied. And remind them that this time we're coming as equals, not as exiles. The human fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the safety of the Outer Rim behind. They were heading toward the greatest battle in galactic history, carrying with them the hopes of every living being in the universe. The Council had wanted humans gone because they were too chaotic and unpredictable. Now that same chaos might be the only thing that could save them all. The Battle of Andromeda Prime began at exactly 0600 Galactic Standard Time and would change the fate of every living being in the universe. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, watching as her fleet of 1,000 human ships dropped out of hyperspace around the ancient Council. Homeworld. What they saw made even the bravest soldiers step back in fear. The planet below was covered in a black cloud of devourer ships. These were not the elegant vessels of the Council races, but twisted metal creatures that moved like living things. Worse still, many of them had once been Council ships, now converted, and turned against their former masters. My God, whispered Captain Steve Rogers from his position on the bridge. There must be 10,000 of them. The surviving Council fleet was nowhere to be seen. A few damaged ships hid behind the planet's moons, but the great armadas that had once patrolled the galaxy were gone. The humans had arrived just in time to watch the final destruction of galactic civilization. All ships, this is Admiral Carter. Lisa spoke into her communicator. Activate quantum anchors on my command. Remember, we're not just fighting for the Council. We're fighting for the right of life to exist in this universe. Dr. Turner was monitoring the battle from his science vessel, the USS Discovery. His instruments were picking up readings that confirmed his worst fears. Admiral, the devourers aren't just consuming the planet. They're converting the quantum structure of reality itself. If they succeed here, they'll be able to rewrite the laws of physics. The devourer swarm noticed the human fleet and began to move toward them. But these creatures had never faced humans in battle before. They had adapted to fight the ordered, predictable tactics of Council races. They were not prepared for human warfare. All ships, scatter formation, Carter commanded. Make them chase us. Don't give them a single target to focus on. The human fleet broke apart like a flock of birds, each ship moving in a different direction. Some dove toward the planet's surface, others climbed high above the orbital plane. A few even flew directly into the asteroid belt. Using the rocks as cover, the devourers tried to follow, but they could not predict where the humans would go next. Council races always fought in neat formations, following ancient battle plans that could be studied and countered. Humans fought like the wild predators they had once been. Using instinct and improvisation instead of rigid rules, Captain Mary Adams had converted her engineering ship into a mobile quantum anchor platform. She led a small group of vessels directly into the heart of the devourer swarm, activating her devices just as the enemy began their conversion process. "Quantum anchors online," she reported, creating stability field around grid reference 7 alpha. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The twisted devourer ships suddenly stopped moving. Their conversion beams flickered and failed. For the first time in the battle, they seemed confused and uncertain. "It's working," Dr. Turner shouted over the communication channel. "The anchors are preventing them from changing the quantum structure. They can't convert matter in a stable reality field." But the devourers learned fast. They began to adapt, focusing their attacks on the ships carrying quantum anchors. Captain Adams found herself surrounded by enemy vessels, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that seemed to grow and change as she watched. "This is Adams. I'm taking heavy fire. Could use some help over here." Captain Rogers and his battle group immediately changed course, diving into the swarm to reach her. But as they fought their way through the enemy ships, something unexpected happened. The devourers began to retreat. "They're pulling back," Rogers reported. "Why would they retreat when they have us outnumbered?" Dr. Turner had the answer. "They're not retreating. They're regrouping. Look at the formation they're making." On the tactical display, the devourer ships were arranging themselves in a complex pattern around the planet. It looked almost like a giant brain made of starships, with energy flowing between the vessels in intricate patterns. "They're creating a collective intelligence," Turner realized. "Every ship they've converted, every race they've absorbed, it's all connected now. They're becoming something new." The collective spoke with a voice that came from everywhere at once, just like Counselor Vexthara S. had years before. But this voice was cold and hungry, filled with the echoes of 1,000,000,000 consumed souls. "You cannot stop us," it said. "We have learned from 1,000 species. We know their strengths, their weaknesses, their fears. We will consume you as we have consumed all the others." Admiral Carter smiled grimly. "You know what? You're probably right. You have learned from 1,000 species. But there's one thing you haven't learned yet." "What is that, small creature?" "You've never tried to eat something that refused to be digested." Carter gave the signal, and every human ship in the fleet activated their quantum anchors at the same time. But they didn't use them to create stable zones. Instead, they did something that no council race would ever have thought of. They used the anchors to broadcast pure chaos. Dr. Turner had discovered that the devourers fed on order and structure. They converted matter by imposing their own quantum patterns on reality, but humans had always been masters of chaos. Now they were turning that chaos into a weapon. "All ships, maximum chaos output," Carter commanded. "Give them everything we've got." The human fleet became a storm of quantum noise. Every ship broadcast different patterns, different frequencies, different types of randomness. Music, poetry, mathematical equations, random numbers, the sound of children laughing, the memory of summer rain on Earth, all of it translated into quantum energy and hurled at the devourers. The collective intelligence screamed. For the first time in millions of years, it encountered something it could not process, could not understand, could not consume. Human creativity was too wild, too unpredictable, too beautifully chaotic for the devourers to handle. "It's working," Turner shouted. "Their collective consciousness is fragmenting. They can't maintain cohesion in this much quantum noise." The devourer ships began to malfunction. Some spun wildly out of control, others simply stopped moving. A few even began attacking each other as their shared intelligence collapsed into confusion, but the battle was not over yet. The devourers had one final trick. The converted council ships, still carrying the memories and knowledge of their original crews, began to break away from the collective. They attacked the human fleet with desperate fury, as if they were trying to prove their loyalty to their new masters. Captain Johnson, commanding a patrol vessel from the early days of exile, found himself facing 3 converted Zephyrian warships. His ship was smaller and less armed, but he had something they did not. He had hope. "This is for everyone who said we didn't belong," he muttered, diving his ship directly between the enemy vessels and detonating his quantum anchor at close range. The explosion created a bubble of perfect chaos that lasted for exactly 3 seconds. In that time, the converted ships remembered what they used to be. Their original programming reasserted itself, and they turned their weapons on the nearest devourer vessels before the collective could regain control. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships, outnumbered and outgunned, used their quantum chaos generators to create moments of clarity in the converted fleets. Each success weakened the Devourer collective a little more. Finally, Admiral Carter saw her chance. The main Devourer command ship, a massive creature that had once been the Council's flagship, was isolated and confused by the quantum storm. "All remaining ships, form up on me," she commanded. "We're going to finish this." The human fleet converged on the command ship like a pack of wolves. Their quantum anchors created a perfect sphere of chaos around the vessel, cutting it off from the rest of the collective. Inside that sphere, the Devourer intelligence found itself alone for the first time in eons, and in that moment of isolation, it experienced something it had never felt before. Fear. The command ship tried to escape, but there was nowhere to go. The quantum chaos followed it wherever it moved. Finally, its systems overloaded, and the vessel exploded in a burst of light that could be seen from 3 star systems away. With the destruction of the command ship, the remaining Devourers lost all coordination. They scattered in all directions, fleeing into the dark spaces between the stars. Some would probably survive, but they would never again be able to form a collective intelligence strong enough to threaten the galaxy. As the battle ended, the surviving council ships emerged from hiding. Counselor Vexthara's voice came over the communication channels, filled with wonder and gratitude. "Admiral Carter, how can we ever thank you? You have saved not just our civilization, but all life in the galaxy." Carter looked out at the wreckage. Floating around Andromeda Prime, thousands of ships, both human and alien, would never return home. But they had won. Against impossible odds, they had won. "You can thank us by remembering this day," she replied. "You wanted us gone because we were too chaotic. But sometimes chaos is exactly what the universe needs to survive. The galaxy would be different now. The old order was broken, and something new would have to take its place. But for the first time in galactic history, humans would have a voice in deciding what that new order would look like." 2 years had passed since the Battle of Andromeda Prime, and the galaxy was learning to live with its new reality. Admiral Lisa Carter walked through the halls of Unity Station, the massive space facility that had been built at the border between Council space and the Outer Rim. It was neither fully human nor fully alien, but something entirely new. The station buzzed with activity. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian technicians to repair damaged ships. Andromedan refugees, their collective consciousness slowly healing from the Devourer attack, shared meals with human colonists in the food courts, children of a dozen. Different species played together in the recreational areas, speaking a mixture of languages that would have confused their grandparents. "Admiral Carter?" called a familiar voice. Jake Morrison approached with a smile on his face. He now served as the Director of Interspecies Relations, a position that had been created specifically for him after the war. "The morning briefing is ready." Lisa nodded and followed him to the conference room. The weekly briefings had become a tradition, bringing together representatives from every major species to discuss the ongoing reconstruction efforts. Counselor Vexthara was already seated at the circular table, Her scales had returned to their healthy silver color, and she looked stronger than she had in years. Next to her sat Governor Patricia Lee, representing the human colonies. Across from them, Trade Minister Kellickmore discussed shipping routes with Captain Steve Rogers. "Good morning, everyone," Lisa began as she took her seat. "Let's start with the reconstruction reports." Dr. Mary Adams activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Green zones marked the areas that had been fully rebuilt. Yellow zones showed regions still under construction. Red zones indicated places where the devourers had left behind dangerous quantum instabilities that were still being cleared. "We've successfully restored 70% of the damaged systems," Mary reported. "The new terraforming techniques are working better than expected. We've managed to bring life back to worlds that the devourers had completely stripped." The success was remarkable. Using a combination of human innovation and alien knowledge, the reconstruction teams had developed methods that could restore entire ecosystems in just a few months. Planets that had been dead rocks were now blooming with forests and oceans. But the changes went deeper than just fixing what had been broken. The war had forced every species to question their old ways of thinking. The rigid hierarchies and ancient traditions that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years no longer seemed as important as they once had. "The Andromedan Collective has made an interesting proposal," said Vexthara. "They want to establish individual identity protocols for their people. Some of them want to experience what it's like to be separate beings, like humans. This was revolutionary." The Andromedans had shared a collective consciousness for so long that they had forgotten what it meant to be individuals. But watching humans fight with such personal courage and creativity had inspired them to try something new. Jake leaned forward. "What about the trade agreements? Are the Zephyrians still having problems with the new shipping routes?" Kellickmore, the purple-skinned trade minister, looked embarrassed. "We are adjusting to the new reality. For centuries, we controlled trade by limiting access to certain routes. But human ships can go anywhere, do anything. They have forced us to compete, instead of simply controlling." The truth was that human merchants had revolutionized galactic trade. They took risks that other species would never consider, explored routes that had been deemed too dangerous, and found ways to make profit in situations where others saw only problems. The old monopolies were crumbling, replaced by a more dynamic and competitive economy. Captain Rogers had his own news to share. "The Outer Rim colonies are doing better than ever. We've got new settlements starting up every month. But we're also getting a lot of requests from alien species who want to move out there." This was perhaps the most surprising development of all. The Outer Rim, which had once been considered a place of exile and punishment, was now seen as the frontier of opportunity. Young aliens from across the galaxy were leaving their comfortable homeworlds to seek adventure and fortune in human space. Dr. Turner joined the meeting by video link from his new research facility on the edge of explored space. "I've got good news and concerning news. The good news is that we haven't detected any new devourer activity. The ones that escaped seem to be staying hidden in deep space." "And the concerning news?" Lisa asked. "We're picking up signals from beyond the galactic rim. There are other galaxies out there, and some of them seem to be trying to contact us. We need to decide how to respond." The room fell silent as everyone considered this information. The galaxy had just finished recovering from one existential threat. The idea of making contact with unknown civilizations from other galaxies was both exciting and terrifying. Governor Lee spoke first. "In my opinion, we should be very careful. We don't know if these signals are friendly or hostile." "Agreed," said Vexthara, "but we also cannot ignore them. If there are other civilizations out there, they might face the same threats we did. Perhaps we can help each other." Jake had been thinking about this problem for weeks. "What if we form a joint exploration mission? Humans and council races working together to make contact. That way, we can share both the risks and the benefits." The idea was radical but appealing. Never before in galactic history had such a partnership been possible. The rigid caste system of the old council would never have allowed it. But the war had changed everything. Dr. Adams had been working on new ship designs that could handle intergalactic travel. The technology is almost ready. We could have a fleet prepared within 6 months. But we'll need volunteers who are willing to travel further from home than any beings have ever gone before. I'll go, said Captain Rogers immediately. After everything we've been through, exploring new galaxies sounds like a vacation. Others quickly volunteered as well. The war had produced a generation of beings who were not afraid to face the unknown. They had already survived the worst threat the galaxy had ever known. What could be more dangerous than that? But not all the changes in the galaxy were about exploration and adventure. There were also deeper, more fundamental shifts happening in how different species related to each other. The old embassy quarter on New Geneva Station had been replaced with something called the integration centers. Instead of keeping different species separate, these facilities encouraged mixing and cooperation. Human children learned alien languages while alien children learned human games. Scientists from different worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible before the war. We're seeing interspecies marriages for the first time in galactic history, Jake reported. Humans and Zephyrians, Andromedans and crystalline beings. The old prohibitions against mixing species are being questioned everywhere. This was perhaps the most significant change of all. For millions of years, each species had remained separate and distinct. But humans had shown that diversity and mixing could create strength rather than weakness. Now other species were beginning to experiment with the same ideas. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Deep Space Monitoring Station. Dr. Turner's face appeared on the main screen, his expression excited but concerned. "We're receiving a direct message," he announced. "It's coming from the Andromeda galaxy, and it's specifically addressed to humanity." The room erupted in surprised voices as everyone tried to understand what this meant. An alien civilization from another galaxy had somehow learned about humans and was trying to make contact. What does the message say? Lisa asked. Turner checked his instruments. It's still being translated, but the basic meaning seems to be, "We have heard of your victory over the devourers. We face a similar threat. Can you help us?" The request was both flattering and terrifying. Somewhere in another galaxy, an entire civilization was asking humanity for help. It seemed that the chaos and unpredictability that had once made humans unwelcome in their own galaxy might be exactly what other worlds needed. Admiral Carter looked around the table at the representatives of species that had once considered humanity too dangerous to live among civilized beings. Now, those same species were depending on human courage and creativity to face an uncertain future. "Well," she said with a slight smile, "I guess we're about to find out just how far this new partnership can take us." The Council had wanted humans gone because they brought change and chaos to an ordered galaxy. But change and chaos, it turned out, were exactly what the universe needed to grow and survive. And as humanity prepared to carry their gifts to other galaxies, the stars themselves seemed to shine a little brighter with anticipation of what was to come. The age of isolation was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And at the center of it all were the beings who had once been considered too wild and unpredictable for civilized society, now recognized as the galaxy's greatest hope for the future.